The Stone Zone with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, and yes, we are back in the Stone Zone. You know, last night on X, I kind of jokingly said that if President Trump did annex Canada and it became an American state, well, I might move there and run for governor. I have been inundated with offers of support, for which I am most grateful. But folks, it was a joke. Donald Trump's big picture thinking about Greenland and Canada, which is really just a jest, is emblematic of his big picture thinking. And the way it drives liberals crazy, well, it's really amusing. Today's a very special day here on the Stone Zone because, well, I've interviewed Robert Davi, the producer, director, screenwriter, activist, jazz vocalist, multi-talented guy of great accomplishment numerous times, but I never feel like I've had enough time. I always feel like there was more we needed to get into. Today, we're not going to have any such restrictions. Here to help me with my hosting duties, my co-host, the editor of Slingshot.news, Troy Smith.
Roger, an honor to be back with you in the Stone Zone.
Troy, I'm liking the purple tie, man. I'm liking it. I see you're bucking for the next year's international men's and women's best dress list, and who knows? I hope springs eternal.
Well, that's right, Roger. I have to bring my best game to the Stone Zone, and it's a new year, and I'm vying for that list. And I heard actually, Roger, that you had people try to bribe you to get on that list. I haven't gone that far yet. But we are upgrading things here, and tie's part of the game. So thank you very much for the compliment.
Yeah, there is a guy who's a right of center net show host, also does a radio show, who actually tried to pay me off to get on the list. Folks, I'm sorry, but you can't bribe your way on the list. You've got to dress your way onto the list. A man who could be on the list on some occasions, about to join us, Robert Davi. Is, as I think all of you know, an international multidimensional star. He's an award-winning prolific actor, over 150 films. He is a screenwriter, director, producer. Some people actually don't know he's an amazingly smooth jazz vocalist. More importantly, he's a patriot. He is an activist. He's a man who expresses his views and support not only of President Trump and the America First agenda, but in his support for our country and what he and I both together see as our dwindling freedoms over the last 4 years, and certainly during the Obama administration. People don't realize that he began writing for Breitbart years ago when Donald Trump and the movement were in its nascent stage. And he's been consistently there, probably to the detriment of his own career. Now, everybody who works for me, all the young people, their favorite movie is Goonies, and they talk about it endlessly. But let's bring him in. After a Renaissance, Robert Davi joins us today on the Stone Zone.
Good morning, Roger, or shall I say, Governor.
By the way, he was the recipient of the Luciano Pavarotti Award from the Italian American Civil Rights League. That was back on December 15th. Robert was doing a triumphant tour of Europe, was unable to join us for that celebration, but he made a video which brought tears to the eyes of many in the crowd, talking about his love of country, his heritage, and his appreciation for the great honor that was bestowed him on that day. So, Robert, I want to congratulate you for that off the top.
And I want to thank you, Roger, for championing that and also championing the Italian American Civil Rights League, the renaissance and the rebirth of it, which is an important organization. It started in the 70s. My uncle and other relatives were part of it, and it was necessary because, as you know, Italians, the New York Times since 1906 said the Italian was lower and dirtier than the Negro. We were getting lower wages than the Irish and the blacks and Hispanics back in a certain time. And rather than being victimized and, shall I say, the Italian American took the bull by the horns, built New York City, built a lot of America, and as many immigrant population did. I'm not negating that, but what the Italian contribution is to our arts, to our country, to civilization. So thank you for bringing that alive again.
Robert, I have to ask you, when you and I met, we met several years ago in the early days of the Trump revolution. You lived in California.
Yes.
I remember sitting in your hotel room at the Trump Resort, actually, in Doral, California. We were enjoying a little double espresso.
Yes.
I can't remember. I may have fired up a cigar. And you told me you were thinking about leaving the Golden State to come to the Sunshine State. Now you've done that. What's wrong? What has happened to California? Why did you move to Florida?
I went to California for the first time in 1977 under the tutelage of Frank Sinatra, who I did my first film with, and we had to shoot. We were shooting in New York, and we spent 3 weeks, Roger, in California shooting external shots of a car chase and whatnot. They put me up at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and they said, "Come out to California. This is where the industry is." And they made a ton of introductions. Mr. Sinatra did, and others. And I then wound up moving to Cal, and it was absolutely wonderful. I had a wonderful time in California for many years. Don't forget that was the Reagan era, the 80s. And then you had Bush, and then you had Pete Wilson, who was the governor of California at the time. And then little by little, as we've seen that's happening to America, California dissipated into chaos, into a crime-infested state that, as Trump said 6 years ago, that doesn't even take care of their forests. And we're seeing what's happening with the environment there. The environmentalists are wrong many times, and instead of taking care of the dead anyway. So California's been mismanaged, and so I had to leave. I just had to leave for the safety of the family. A woman was murdered, called the wife of Clarence Avant, was murdered. Nicole Avant is her daughter, who directed a film or made a film called The Black Godfather about Clarence Avant, which was on Netflix. She's also married to the head of Netflix. Her mother was murdered. Jacqueline Avant was murdered in her home. And at the time I was thinking of leaving because the crime and the homelessness and everything else that I was seeing happening, and the crazy California politics, the Hollywood contingent, and you have Pelosi and Schumer and Schiff, they go up to SAG, they make these rules, they infect, and whenever they infect, they destroy, I've got to tell you. But anyway, so I decided to leave.
And the quality of life here in Florida compared to where you were in the Golden State, the once Golden State?
Yeah, well, you know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, a big actor who you met recently and gave one of your awards to for his sartorial splendor. He's been a friend since the 70s, late 70s, and he moved here. And I had said to him, should I move? And he said, I love it here, and gave me a list of reasons why, and that helped push me into it. And so I had directed the film My Son Hunter in Serbia, got off the plane in Orlando. My wife met me there from California. We started looking at homes and settled here in Tampa Bay.
We are very glad to have you, and I promise to make my way to North Florida so we may break bread soon. And
That would be great.
Going to make good on that process.
You know,
Robert,
we
I'm sorry.
first met in New Orleans. Do
That's
you
right.
remember that?
I do.
We
I
first
do.
met in New Orleans when I got the Louis Prima Award, and I was there in New Orleans at an event, and you were there. I don't know if you were at the event or I met you because you were at maybe a political function, and we met at the hotel in New Orleans initially.
I actually
And then
think I was there for the filming of my small cameo in the movie Roe v. Wade. And you were performing at the hotel. It was just
and I was in Roe v. Wade too, as well. Yes.
We both were. Your part was a little larger than mine. I played a Washington Post reporter. And look, I'm not an actor. You are. You're an accomplished actor. Although if you're in politics, I guess you're kind of an actor. I had a very short role, but I was a Washington Post reporter, so I acted, sleazy, duplicitous, oily. I think I nailed it, to be honest with you. I have to do this to you because the folks who work for me will kill me if I don't. Everybody here loves Goonies. One of your earliest films. We've got a clip. Let's take a quick look, and then I want to get into politics and what's happening to America today. But I do want to talk about your tour of Europe because I'd like to know what people are saying there about America's future. But let's take a quick look.
You schmuck. Do you really think I'd be stupid enough to kill myself?
Here he comes.
The lock! Let go of the handle! I don't have the handle! Open the lock!
Shake up! Come on, move! Open it up! Come on!
I love that. I can't see it enough times. I'm going to go.
A lot of that was improvised.
It was amazing, really amazing. They've replayed this film so many times here in the studio. I think I know every second of it.
Oh my gosh.
But it's a favorite here. You've had an amazing career. You've worked with Clint Eastwood. You've worked with one of the all-time greats, Frank Sinatra, obviously Bruce Willis, Christopher Walken, Danny Glover, actors like Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's an extraordinary career. Marlon Brando.
Bob Dylan.
Let me just ask this and go to Troy. Why not, hide your light beneath a bushel? In other words, why not, like so many in Hollywood who actually privately agree with you and I and Troy on our politics, but realize, well, it's going to have a deleterious effect on their career, and maybe it's best to keep, your politics to yourself. This is why I admire you so much. This is why I have so much respect for you, because you haven't done that. You have said what you thought. You've stood up for the country. You've stood up for Donald Trump, certainly, for the America First movement, for our Constitution. It has to be at some cost to yourself in terms of parts and opportunities, no?
Absolutely. Actually, it started earlier on in 2000 because I wasn't only someone who supported a candidate. I had an articulate voice, and I think a lot of times that worried some of the left in Hollywood, because you can affect in some way. You can affect the votes. You can affect people's understanding of things, and So yes, you are, shall I say, pushed down. I've been blacklisted as many as there are others that have been. And it was my great hope that in the administration, the new administration, that they perhaps would have a group of us come to the White House and talk about the grievances that the people that are many conservatives, below the line people and other stars that are afraid to come out, or other actors, so to speak, and how the left has even co-opted the Screen Actors Guild and how they've made decisions. Do you know the head of the Screen Actors Guild gets a $285,000 retirement, and when he retires in 20 years, and Tom Hanks, who paid much more into the union, would only get $96,000. That's the cap that actors have, as much as they've worked. And they make these bills, and Pelosi and Schumer and Schiff and the rest of the left is up at that union all the time. They took health care away from the seniors. They took health care away from the seniors. And this stuff goes by unnoticed, quietly, and people don't know where to go to, because the majority, there's only 14% of the actors that make enough money to get their insurance. And the rest of the company, the rest of the union votes on this. And it's crazy, Roger, just like the government. They need a Doge in the Screen Actors Guild as well, but they can't penetrate because it's a left-wing cabal, just like our country.
All right, let's go to Troy. Troy, we have a distinguished guest. I know you've been thinking about this overnight. Your questions for our guest, the multi-talented Robert Davi.
Absolutely, sir. It's an honor to speak with you again here on the Stone Zone. You were a former resident of California, and we pulled a clip this morning of Gavin Newsom, the current governor there, kind of standing and watching these fires raging in Malibu. I would assume you still have friends there in California. And I wanted to get your opinion. Let's play this video right here of Gavin Newsom standing there watching these horrible fires and get your opinion on what's going on there, the terrible mismanagement. We also have the clip, by the way, of President Trump making the statement to Gavin Newsom. We should probably play that back to back some years ago about the wildfire and the forest management out there. Let's roll those clips and then come back and get your opinion.
Cleaned out and protected. You've got to take care of the floors, the floors of the forests, very important. You look at other countries where they do it differently, and it's a whole different story. I was with the president of Finland, and he said, we have a much different, we're a forest nation. He called it a forest nation. And they spend a lot of time on raking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem. So I know everybody's looking at that, to that end, and it's going to work out.
Robert?
I can't look at Gavin Newsom and not want to vomit. Well, Gavin Newsom is a mannequin. He's a mannequin for a fashion show. He was raised by the Gettys, the D'Alessandros, the Pelosis, the Browns. He's an elite that is out of touch but makes photo ops. Trump gave a speech at a sit-down even 6 years ago, what he was saying to Gavin directly about the forests, about what should be done to California. He knows, Trump knows, the most maligned political figure in history who knows better than any of these morons gets maligned by the left, I want to pull my teeth out if they were fake. It's frustrating. I don't know how we stop the insanity that people, you got a guy like Bill Maher goes, well, Gavin Newsom's a winner. How is he a winner, Bill? People don't confront the Hollywood elite. They got to be confronted. They got to be said. That's why we need a commission that can go into Hollywood and say, enough with silencing conservatives, enough of silencing common sense, the America First agenda. And anyway, it makes me, I get heated up. I shouldn't get heated. I don't know why, Roger and Troy. I just get heated up about this stuff. They should have listened to Trump back then. And they, it's like what Pete Wilson said. In 1990, Pete Wilson, you can find it on the LA Times article, which I'm glad the LA Times guy now is like the Washington Post, the editorial staffs are now going to be a little more fair, I guess. But what Pete Wilson said back in the day, gentlemen, is that he wanted the rainwater to be captured. There was trillions of gallons of rainwater that run off into the ocean. And he wanted reservoirs. But because of the yellow-spotted pigeon or whatever it might be, they didn't want to put these reservoirs, which would have been fine. But California would have enough water for everyone, for drought seasons, if they had listened to Pete Wilson. And now Gavin Newsom talks about it. He throws it up, just like they're doing about the, it's a political expediency, not common sense. What the left does is they co-opt however the wind blows, not for what should be done. It's how they get away with it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. Back when I had money, back in the days before the Mueller witch hunt, my wife and I would rent a home either in Santa Monica or in Venice Beach every summer for 1 month. It was delightful. There's a great Italian place there that we really liked, right there along Santa Monica Boulevard. It was my respite from a year in the war of politics. I wouldn't think of going to Santa Monica on vacation now. It'd be the last place on earth. You'd have to watch people, using the outdoors as a giant outside toilet. You have crime, you have drug addiction, you have people shooting up in public. I've seen the videos. How do you take state that is naturally, without any question, with no criticism of Florida, but without any question, the most beautiful state, the richest state when it comes to natural resources and near perfect weather, almost year round? How do you destroy that the way the high tax, soft on crime policies have destroyed that state? Gavin Newsom clearly warming up for a presidential campaign, the Democrat Party in shambles. They have no leader other than maybe the puppeteers, Barack and Michelle Obama behind the scenes. And if they do as well as picking a nominee next time as they did this time, well, it'll be a long time before they get back in the White House. But anyone who believes that Barry's not still pulling the strings really doesn't understand what's going on in that party. I've got to do this because you just did a terrific tour of Europe. People don't understand that in Europe, people appreciate live entertainment far more than they do in this country. There aren't that many venues for entertainers here in the United States. I was once actually an agent for a singer named Clive Baldwin. He had a great set of pipes, but it's very hard for me to keep him in work. Now, Robert, he wasn't a star of your magnitude, but he was an extraordinarily talented entertainer. And other than, getting him lounge acts in casinos, and an occasional opening act for somebody much better known than he was, I had a hard time finding work for him. Tell us about your trip through Europe, but more importantly, and this is the most important part, I know Troy finds that here in the United States, since Election Day, there's a new spirit among the American people. There's a new optimism. There's a new hope. There's a huge amount of relief that we've dodged a bullet, that we came this close to the edge of the total destruction of our nation under the current administration. There's like a collective sigh of relief. Well, you were there post-election. What are people in Europe saying?
Well, first off, even right after the election, people were starting to be relieved. I know, again, I've been to Serbia, I've been to Estonia, Latvia, Sweden, Finland, Italy, Budapest, and the people throughout Europe, the people, not necessarily the WEF puppets, but many of the people were relieved. Even people that were not, you have people that were enamored. Don't forget, Obama became a cultural figure, getting that prize, for whatever he did. because he was the first black-white president, and it broke a barrier, and everybody felt warm and fuzzy and loved it, and then realized, wait a minute, what happened here? Trump, there's new hope. I had people that were diehard Obama, and they still can't let go of the prejudice they have because of a couple of mean tweets or a guy that looks at you in the eye and maybe tells you the truth and says it with a little bit of New York swagger. So they might have a little problem with that, but they're thinking that the world is going to be in a lot better shape, and they hope that he gets in and stops this Ukraine and what's happening in the Middle East and what he had done before. And, again, the resistance comes from the lack of education. Look at England falling apart. Look at how they're attacking Elon Musk, that Keir Starmer over there, and what's happening. And it's who would have thought Trudeau would have resigned? I mean, so the ripple effect, and you have Milei from Italy. People are emboldened. There's an emboldened movement. It's quite extraordinary and quite, I think, for me, encouraging. And thank God.
We've actually seen this before in the immediate period after Ronald Reagan was first elected in 1980. Where you saw parties in Europe and in South America, conservative party, nationalist parties. By the way, that's not a dirty word, nationalist. That means you love your country. When they call you a nationalist,
country.
Means you love your country. The left likes to throw that like an epithet. Oh, he's a nationalist. Yeah, I am. I love my country. He is a white Christian nationalist. Well, let's see. I am white, although I'm Sicilian. I'm Sicilian, so some may argue with that. I'm a Christian, most definitely. I am redeemed in the blood of the cross, and I talk about it. The Washington Monthly attacks me when I talk about my faith, but I don't really care what they think. I really only care what he thinks. And they say you're a nationalist. Well, yeah, because we love our country. Nothing wrong with that. We have a clip here of you singing that I have to play because I love it. I had you on my 77 WABC radio show. You covered the great Frank Sinatra's My Way, which was really dedicated to Donald Trump, a man who has done it his way. But I love this clip. Let's roll it.
Gustav Mahler said, music is the closest to the absolute. And with this next song, I absolutely want to sing it to all of you, because this is how you make me feel. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. Every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to run and play hide and seek. I want to go and bounce that moon just like a toy balloon. You and I, we are just like a couple of tots, running across the meadow, picking up all those forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, lots of bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so young. You make me young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. Every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I want to run and play hide and seek. I want to go and bounce that moon just like a toy balloon, because you and I, we are just like a couple of tots, running walking across that meadow, picking up all those forget-me-nots. You make me young. You make me feel that there are songs to be sung, lots of bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so. Yeah, babe, I feel so. You make me feel so young.
God, that stirs the blood. It's just great. The power of singing with a full orchestra like that, it just must feel just amazing.
It's
really.
incredible. It's like having a battalion behind you as you're charging the front. The music just transcends and goes through you. It's great to communicate. I love acting and stuff and film, but the music, if you have a big band or even if it's a three-piece, the channeling that you get and the back and forth with the audience communicating is just wonderful.
Do you feel, when you auditioned for a part or when you were under consideration for a major part, that your vocal talents were an asset in that regard?
Well, it wasn't necessarily, something like even the Bond film, I never auditioned for it, nor Die Hard. You do it early on. I did a lot of plays. I did, thousands of performances of live performance going through college and a little bit afterwards, and then training with Adler and then the Actors Studio in New York and the rest of it. So what happens is you get a part and then they recommend you for something. And when I've had to audition, it's more the interpretation, because I have not done many singing roles. Even in the Goonies, when I throw in a couple of little operatic tones. But I think just the love of music. I used to go in my basement, Roger, and I used to pretend I was Toscanini, and I was orchestrating great symphonies. And I had to be about 7, 8 years old. I love the power of the music and the opera and the symphonic, anyway. So I don't know where it wasn't necessarily that, because you have people that don't have a tremendous vocal that do a great, become terrific actors. Marlon Brando wasn't a great singer or had a wonderful voice, but he was a tremendous actor. He had a unique quality.
Yeah, I think you are blessed. You're very definitely blessed. Not only a great jazz vocalist, but also a great actor. Let's talk for a minute about the film Reagan. We've reviewed it and played it extensively here, including we've played your clips. But you play Mikhail Gorbachev in this great film. I must tell you, Brezhnev. Pardon me, I misspoke. Yeah. And it's very effective. I must tell you, since I worked for Ronald Reagan in his 1976 campaign when we challenged Gerald Ford, in his 1980 campaign when we defeated George Bush, and in my opinion, probably maybe Reagan's greatest single mistake, which was breathing life back into the political career of George Bush, who had lost 2 back-to-back U.S. Senate races in Texas, who had then gone through a succession of appointed jobs because of his inability to win an election, but made him vice president, which ultimately shifted control of the Republican Party away from the populist conservative movement as represented by Reagan back to the neocons, back to the establishment, perhaps Reagan's greatest mistake. That movie historically was amazingly accurate, historically accurate. Now, there's a few characters from Reagan's life, like his famous press secretary, Lynn Nofziger, who was a very engaging, kind of rumpled and a real character, to say the least. But I was amazed at how historically accurate the entire film was, and your portrayal of Brezhnev was, for me, the high point, one of the high points of the film. You must have had a great time. You had an amazing cast. Everybody there did an amazing job. John Voight does an amazing job, kind of as the narrator of the story, playing a KGB agent. Was it fun to make that film? That you had to feel like you were in on a piece of history, no?
Well, yeah. I mean, the producer Mark Joseph had it. Told me in 2015 there was a Hollywood Reporter article when he said he wanted me to play Brezhnev, and he was so excited about this, about Reagan. They were hoping it to come out sooner, actually, and it worked out perfectly how it came out later on this year, earlier last year, I mean, and it was, you know, the director is a terrific director, and working with John Voight, my old friend, and many of the other actors. It was, and being a part of doing a historical piece, and having to then delve into who Brezhnev was beyond what's on the page of a script or in the few scenes you may be in. But understanding that, and historically understanding his significance, was quite interesting because he was close friends with Nixon, Brezhnev was. But to work on that film, and I also have 2 songs in it. When Ronnie meets Nancy, Nancy with the laughing face is me singing, and then when they go to Vegas, this town, I do in it as Bob Dylan has a song in it, and Gene Simmons, and quite a few other terrific talents. But it was, yeah, it was fun to work on it, and it was during COVID.
Amazing. Now you have a new film. I think we got the poster here for it. I'm going to say, I hope I pronounce Bardajov. And we have there's the poster. Let's show the trailer and then let Robert tell us about it.
All the Jews need to register for work. Who does not want will be punished. I am the head of the Jewish Council of Badio. It's important that we keep playing the game for the time being. We're safe.
You're not.
300 names, and this list will be rounded up. There are no exceptions. Where are they taking the girls? Is there a shoe factory in Brezhnev?
There is no shoe factory in Brezhnev.
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz. Auschwitz. Auschwitz.
They're still right here. We have to do something.
People deserve better.
Jews are not people! You cannot get on the train tomorrow.
Wow.
That looks amazingly powerful. Troy, your thoughts?
That's an unbelievable trailer, sir. When you were preparing for this movie and you were, kind of delving into this darker subject matter, did you find yourself kind of getting enveloped by the darkness, or how do you prepare in that instance for something that is along the lines where you're going to be portraying a character that's in such a dark place historically? It's pretty amazing.
Well, first off, the interesting part is I had not been to Israel except for about 2 years ago, and then I went 3 times in several months, one of which was to film Bardejov and then film it in the town of Bardejov in Slovakia. And I've been involved and understood the conflict over there since the late 80s, actually. And I've been watching videos of Rebbe Schneerson, who was an incredible person, a Brooklyn rabbi. And I had always felt, even as a Christian, that Christ was Jewish and the Jewish traditions were a lineage. So I embraced them. And the story, the humanistic story, when I grew up and Roger grew up, the Holocaust was part of our it was there. We understood. They were educating us on it. And then over the decades, all of a sudden, they stopped. And it transitioned into something else. And, you know, I've been very friendly. I'm a representative of the Shiloh Israel Children Fund. You can go to israelchildren.org. And what he does is he rehabilitates. Imagine the children of survivors of the Holocaust. And you have that today in Israel. And how do you rehabilitate them? Well, it's through a thing called creative rehabilitation, through animals, through teaching them, to helping them. And with the arts, whether it's painting or music or acting, and then again, horseback riding, whatever it might be. Because the trauma that's left there that I learned from doing Bardioff was because it was through the Emil Fish, 89-year-old Holocaust survivor, produced the film. He was 9 years old at the time. And he made a nadar. He made a promise to that community that he was going to bring them forward and tell this story of Bardioff, where a community gets together and without being violent, saves over 300 girls. And it was in my bone when I first read the script. And, you know, and going there, it's curious. There's so much to say on these things because we're, on the creative arts again, we had crew that was Palestinian and Jewish. They were Israeli. They were from Israel and working together peacefully. And I always felt the arts was something that if you bring to people, it could be healing. And well, anyway, this story had not been told, and I play this real character. I met 17 members. I'm rambling like a rambling rose here.
Oh,
there's so much, but
very interesting. Very interesting.
Raful, I met his family, the Raful Lowy. 17 members of the family came, and but it was parts. I think God prepares you for parts sometimes, and this was a part that was in me and ready to be born because it came to me out of the blue from Danny A., the terrific director, who I've done other films for. And you wouldn't normally say, "Oh, Robert, I want you to play an Orthodox Jew," but he gave me the script. He says, "Who do you like?" I says, "This character, Lowy." And small independent, but it should have gotten much more attention than it did. It's a very powerful film. And the anti-Semitism that we see in the world today is, it's shocking. And I think it's a testament to, and this came out just when those universities, right after October 7th.
Oh, wow.
When the universities were having the protests. And you were seeing this, something that David Horowitz, and I know you know David Horowitz, Roger. David Horowitz talked about this since the 90s, the anti-Semitism and the rise of it, and how our youth has forgotten certain things. Anyway, I digress all over the place. I'm sorry.
Well, I think this is exactly what our viewers and listeners want to hear us talk about. Not only are you an actor, obviously a screenwriter, producer, but you're also a director. Your film Dukes is won a number of awards. We got the trailer. I got to show this. Let's do it.
Listen, son, we don't do these things. Do you understand? You know who we are? Where we toured? I played cards backstage with more legends than you ever watched on TV. We had hit songs when you weren't allowed to cross the street by yourself. And you want to tell us how to sing, how to record this?
Hey, we all set, Danny?
All set, Dave.
All right, everyone. Have it nice and quiet.
When they were young, they were on top of the world.
One of the greatest groups of the 60s, the Dukes.
But now, the world is on top of them.
We get no calls.
Brian Stennis wants his money.
We're $4,000 to $5,000 short. George, we don't have any money.
Trying the best I can to get jobs for you guys, and in this climate, it is not easy.
What does climate have to do with it? The weather out here is great.
We're not looking for jobs. We're looking for money.
35 pounds of gold.
It's just sitting there. I mean, how hard could it be? My man's got this guy. He's a master thief.
He told me that you could open up any safe around.
Any safe.
This is what I get off on.
We gotta bring Sinitsky. There's gonna be electricity there. We're gonna need him. We need to look out.
Wake up. He can't even walk.
You can sit in the car with a walkie-talkie.
Anybody else come in behind us?
No Danny, nobody.
No names, idiot.
Sorry, Danny.
This is a setup. Let them put me in a bag and bury me, because I can't even afford a box.
They're coming in. Hide. Jump into safe.
I don't believe you just said that.
You knew he was a gangster, a common thief. You should have had no part of it.
How come you don't sing anymore?
Well, Daddy's time passed.
You got a gift that's only good when you give it away. You make people fall in love. You patch them up when they fight. Never forget who you are.
How many scores have you guys put down?
None.
Why do you want to start playing this game at your age?
It's a long story and a very bad idea.
Guy's a thief. So are we.
You know, there's a poignant moment there because my own mother, who was, if you knew Tony Soprano's mother in that hit series, that was my mother. Sicilian woman, tough, devout, suspicious. When she passed at 91, the last thing she said to me with her last breath is, "Never forget who you are." It almost brings me to tears, to be honest with you. A great experience. Has to be a great experience to direct a film. But Robert, I really feel when we have these conversations by phone, your heart's in the fight for this country. People don't realize how many important, impactful pieces you've written for Breitbart, at detriment to your own career, as you have admitted today. But the segment we did on 77 WABC radio this past Sunday, I just looked at the ratings this morning. The spike in our listeners when in that brief segment that you and I did on Sunday was the highest rating the station had that day. So you have an audience out there. Maybe it's
What's your audience? I think Roger Stone is.
No, I think in this case, I think it's both. You are a star of the first magnitude, but also you're an Italian American like me in a market, in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, with a huge Italian American audience. This is why I utilize my mother's recipes on Sundays.
So great.
Teach you how to make a nice bolognese, which we call Sunday gravy, where I come from. Yes. But we talked about the immigration issue. I know this animates you. Some of you feel very deeply about.
Yes.
We also talked about animal rescue, which is an interest, something else you and I have in common. But yes. Do you really think that the president, I do, let me say that up front, but do you think the president can successfully deport what may be as many as 20 million illegals who have entered our country? We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We have some idea how many weapons they brought with us. Christy Hutchinson's been on our show and talked about that. To me, this is probably the number one issue in the country. I'm going to go to the inauguration, but I must tell you, I do so with some trepidation, with some concern about security, not just security for the president himself. And I'm concerned about that. When I say the rosary at night, that's my leadoff prayer for his safety, because he right now is the one thing that stands between this country and chaos.
Yes.
And he didn't want a narrow election. He won a sweeping election. So talk to us about your concerns on this issue. And you've been talking about it. You've been writing about it. Yeah. You've been a leader on it. The floor is yours.
Well, first off, the immigration, as I told you, Sunday, 2009, I met with McConnell and I wrote an article on Breitbart about immigration. I always felt, excuse me, that's my little Bijan.
We love Don. We love Don, the StoneZONE.
And I've got to talk about the what's happening to the rescue. So we have 25 million unknown illegal immigrants in our country. And the left keeps saying we're a nation of immigrants, which we all respect. Our Italian immigrants came here, but they had to go through Ellis Island, and they had to have many different, they had to have a place to stay, they had to have money, they had to have health certificate, whatnot. We knew who they were, and they weren't coming in to destroy the country. They came in to assimilate into the United States of America. You have 25 million plus illegal immigrants that are in our nation, and to give a specific instance, not only the danger to your life and the rapes and stuff like that, and it's not all of them, because people on the left get crazy, not all of them, no. But one person is suing Delta Rescue, an animal hospital, one illegal immigrant, for $6.7 million. Could destroy that rescue. All right? Activist judge, who I hear was taken off the case recently, or taken off, they put it somewhere else, Escalante. I don't know if it came from our discussion on Sunday, but all of a sudden, as you know, Roger, with our legal system, there are certain things that they don't allow you to say for your own defense, which to me is crazy. So, and illegals can have everything in their favor. The short answer is yes. We have to find out who's here. We have to find out a compassionate way for good people that came in here to perhaps have a process. Maybe it's creating a thing called the Earth Corps, where they go into a service in terms of cleaning up, for instance, the forests, forest fires, toxic mishaps, wastes. Maybe they come in and they're trained by ex-military personnel to learn new green technologies, to do volunteer work. Maybe there's some way for people that are here that are healthy, not criminals, and I don't have a criminal past, but there could be some formula. But otherwise, any inherent felony out, you got to go out of the country. How do they do that? I'm sure they're sweeping plans for it in some way. Technically, I think Tom Homan is working on that with President Bush and the rest of the team to figure out exactly how to do that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I said Gorbachev when you meant Brezhnev. You just said Bush when you meant Trump. So we're.
Oh, did I say Bush?
Yeah, you. But so now.
No kidding. I said Bush.
We both made the same error in the same show.
Isn't that
but
funny?
I first of all, just common sense. Why not make it the law that you have to be a U.S. citizen to file a lawsuit within the U.S. judicial system? It seems to me that would be one reasonable common sense fix. We talked about this on yesterday's show. The other thing I think we must do is and I'm sorry to say that I've been in this position, but if you're a U.S. citizen and you're charged with a federal crime, well, then you should stand trial at the place that you live, not in Washington, D.C. So if you're charged with crimes, I was charged with fabricated crimes. As you know, I was framed to pressure me to testify falsely against President Trump. Not what we're here to talk about today. People who watch the show know the story. But had I stood trial in Florida, I would have had a reasonable chance to have an unbiased judge. I would have had a reasonable chance to have an unbiased jury. That is not possible in the District of Columbia, where virtually every judge is a left-wing activist in a robe, where the jury makeup, because of the makeup of the District of Columbia, I had not a single military veteran on my jury, not a single Roman Catholic on my jury, not a single I can't say non-Democrat because one guy was a Green Party member, but it was a hanging jury from day one. So I've always thought you should be tried in the state where you live. I think that would be an important reform. I hope it's something that the Congress will pursue. It's always frustrating.
If I may interject, also, which is, again, when you have a judge that does not allow you to honor, you're sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. So this particular person, Leo Grillo, wanted to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but they refused him to tell the truth. He couldn't tell the truth because they silenced much of the things that should have been said. Now, how is that fair in our legal system? How is that fair? I mean, I guess I was naive when I was younger, thinking, well, I didn't. I wasn't naive. I remember my parents having an issue when they were younger. They got railroaded. They got railroaded on an incident, and that sparked my first initial thought. And I must have been about 12 years old when I saw them suffer over a decision that was made that was unjust in a insurance thing, an accident that the truck hit my mother's car, ran a red light and hit my mother's car, who was pregnant 6 months at the time. And I remember the anguish they had, the deep anguish they had over, they weren't, they misconstrued, they lied. Anyway, no one knows better than yourself.
All right, we're pretty much out of time. Troy, I'm going to let you wrap it up. I want to thank our guest, Robert Davi, the multi-dimensional, talented superstar, for joining us today. But when we talk, Robert, there's just never enough time.
I know. Can I mention one thing that you brought up about Reagan and Bush? And most people don't realize that. And the thing that irked me is when Bush, who spent 8 years with Reagan, peace through strength, Bush decides to run in 1988, and his moniker is a kindler, gentler nation. And there it is. We got off into the WEF. The whole globalist neocon agenda was laid before us with a kindler, gentler nation. So what he's saying, that Reagan's success, Reagan was what's he saying? He's putting Reagan down. A kindler, gentler, you know?
Yes, although I think it's important to note that he gets nominated by going to the convention and saying, and I quote, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And then one of the very first things he does is raise federal taxes. That is the functional end of Reaganism right there. All right, we have to wrap it up. Let me thank, first of all, my co-host, Troy Smith. Troy, you've got your own show now. Tell us very quickly about that.
Exactly, Roger. Just before this show on Worldview Tube, the 3 p.m. slot, or at Slingshot News on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, wherever. You can check out clips of the Troy Smith Show Monday through Friday, all week, Slingshot TV. Thank you very much, Roger.
Great to have you with us again today in the zone. I want to thank our guest, Robert Davi. He's back here for the close. Robert, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being a patriot. Thank you for standing up for America. I love you, my brother.
I love you, Roger. Thank you so much. And Troy, lovely to meet you and talk with you. And again, thank you, Roger, and God bless you and your wife. And you look beautiful at Mar-a-Lago. I saw that picture. She's stunning. God bless her.
Thank you. By the way, we didn't take time for a commercial break today. If you like my Make America Italian Again hat, you can go to StoneZONE.com. StoneZONE.com. Go to the store there. I only had about 50 of them made. I was shocked when they sold out almost immediately. They're back in stock. Get your very own Make America Italian Again, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. You can get it at StoneZONE.com. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?